Welcome back to another fudged it already. Jesus Christ.
Little stool.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we're back for another episode here, guys. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks, mate. That jumped me a bit quick then.
Yeah.
So back from that episode number 2. So obviously different day, different t-shirts. But yeah, no, excited for this one. So we got some cool things to talk about, because last time we talked about how Thor got in shape, Hugh Jackman's Zlatan. We talked about photo shoots in terms of like what happens after the coaching. So yeah, excited for this one. And the first thing we're going to talk about is big old Paddy McGaddy.
Paddy the Baddie is the reason why we're talking about Paddy the Baddie is because it relates back to a lot of things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So Paddy the Baddie, UFC fighter, very, very good, Scouse lad, very funny, but most importantly, he's renowned for getting fat between his fights. And a lot of people are giving him shit for getting fat in between fights. And when we would look at it and a client would do that, we would be like, oh my God, like they've really rebounded, they've got out of shape. But I want to talk about why it works for him and why potentially it does, and how you might be different, so that you don't try it at home, basically.
That's what WWE saying.
Yeah, literally, don't try it at home. So he will go in between fights, but the most important thing is he gets in shape. He'll hit his weight target. He'll do everything he needs to, and then openly admits that he will choose to get fat during the middle between the fights, because he loves the food. He loves dessert. He can't name his favorite food. So why would this not be a negative for a fighter like him?
It won't be a negative because he wins his fights.
That's true. Yeah, if you can knock someone out, you're absolutely fine with that.
That's what I mean. Like if he, the difference is with it, if he was losing his fights, people probably give him even more stick. Yeah. But because he's winning his fights, it probably doesn't make as much of an impact. But the reason why it probably wouldn't work for day-to-day people is because it's that maintenance. Like, how can you maintain that kind of sorts of aggressive dieting that he does for his fights? But then on the back end of it, it's like he has the green light to go and do what he wants, because he doesn't have a goal. Like, the goal isn't, I'm going to fight next week. There's months and months between fights. Yeah. So he every time he does get in shape, he's got the green light to take his foot off the gas and enjoy the victory, because he always freaking wins. Yeah. And just relax for a little bit. Yeah,
and that's the key, right? It's that if you've got a specific goal and you don't mind the ramifications of what happens afterwards, you're fine to do it. Yeah. Like, if I did a bodybuilding show and I was like, right, it's the only bodybuilding show I'm going to do one in a year's time. I don't really care what happens in between. I just know that on November the 1st, I'm going to start this cut and I'm going to get in shape regardless of what happens. I don't care if I've made improvements, because his goal is not to make improvements within his physical self, right? You can still get stronger, what body weight you are. You can still build muscle, whatever body weight you are. So he will not have a specific goal that means that he has to stay in shape. Now, the people that are further into their careers, don't like those aggressive cuts, will stay away from them because they're quite aggressive to do. But for someone like him, because he's got that high cost, which is he likes to get fat, he likes his food, he has to have this high cost on the other side, which is I have to diet really aggressively to get to where I want to. Yeah. So he has the best of both worlds because he commits to it and he can do it. Whereas if you're looking at it from just a normal person's perspective, you'll see this person blowing up between and you're like, oh, that's not healthy, it's not great, why is he not doing what he needs to do? But you're playing a different game. He's not playing a physique sport. He's not playing a physique game. Whereas most clients actually want a physique that they can be confident with 365.
Yeah, 24/7. And that's the difference between having, again, it comes down to like what we spoke about last episode. Like, what are you actually doing it for? Yeah. Like Paddy, he's doing it for a fight. So him going aggressively, he can do that. He's done it many times beforehand. For a client, a Gen Pop client, you don't know what's happening in that time of their life. So it could be the most craziest things going down in terms of work, relationships, whatever. How can you expect someone to aggressively diet for a certain goal? And it all comes back and roundabouts. Like, aggressive dieting is a tool that I love using, but it has to be in the right scenario. It has to be, again, what I talked about last time, a deadline in place. Paddy's deadline is his fights. For clients, what's their deadline? To have that aggressive stint of getting in shape for.
Yeah, because there's a bit afterwards for clients, right? They do a photo shoot, but they do truly care what happens 3, 6, 8 weeks afterwards. Yeah. Whereas he's deadline, done, give me pizza, I'll forget about it for 2 or 3 months, then I go back again. It works because he's choosing to do that. because his goal desires that particular thing. If my goal was to be in shape 365, I would have to take a lot of different stances to how he eats compared to how I would eat. And that's the most important thing. When you have that goal and you have a desired outcome and you look at it from a 365 days a year viewpoint, you'll be able to know where you can push and where you can pull. And if you're trying to have the cake and eat it in staying in shape forever, there'll be levers that you have to pull on all of the time. You know, if you want to stay with a six pack all year round, you're going to have to not go and have those big wild ones. You're going to have to be moderate, or you're going to have to do loads of exercise to outweigh that. There's a ramification to stay in that point, and we can have a separate episode on the fact there's like what it takes to stay lean year round. That's a whole different thing, because staying in shape isn't staying shredded. It's the different things altogether.
Yeah, and there's different scopes of it.
Yeah, 100%. There's different tiers of it. There's like, you got your 6-pack with veins on it, then you got your 4-pack, then you got your 12-pack of Carlin, then then you got your big belly, and all those different areas will have different processes to get there. So just wanted to cover Paddy the Baddy, because he is a really, really good role model for mental health as well, which is awesome. Obviously, day before his last fight, his friend committed suicide, and then he won the fight, and then said that thing in the ring about how guys need to speak, and you know, they would. What he said was that he would rather have a friend or his best mate cry on his shoulder than go to his funeral the day after, and that's a statement. And
that's powerful as hell.
Yeah,
and it's on the back of, I think we might have spoke about this beforehand, but just the whole like, what is masculinity to you?
Yeah.
Because for some people, masculinity could be being an alpha. For some people, masculinity could be just being there for your mate.
Yeah.
But I think we've all experienced like just that one text in terms of the mental health can just change your day. So if you're having the worst day, like shit's hit the fan, work's gone crazy, arguing with the other half, that one text from a mate can literally just twist the day around and make you just feel so much more better about everything.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time it gets very overlooked, and it's the whole saying, man up.
Yeah. It's innate for us as well. Like, I don't actually, I'll take that back. I don't know if it's innate, because I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know if I will. I don't know whether it's innate or it's just a behavior that you've picked up over years through, you know, repetition of parents or dads or friends or guys that do the same traits as you, so they become normalized. So, you know, when I'm hustling hard, and you know there was a one recently, like yesterday, I'm like, I've got more to do, but I'm feeling like shit. Millie's like, she just grabbed my phone off me and was like, you're not doing it, you need to rest. And I'm like, but I need to do more. And that's just, I don't know whether that's entrepreneurship or whether that's guyship or whatever you want to call it. It's like, you need to do more, you need to provide, you need to do more, you need to not be let down, you need to not be a letdown. If you said you're going to do something, I pride myself on making sure that I do that, but I also think other guys are like that too, because it's very much like instinctively, like, I need to do this, it's ours, I'm going to take it, I'm going to do whatever I need to. And then when you're in that moment, it's hard to let go of that feeling of being like, fuck, I need to let go of that manship or whatever it is, to be like, actually, I'm not okay, I'm tired, I've got a headache, and I need to take a step back, and tomorrow is another day.
Yeah, no, 100%. It goes round and roundabouts, doesn't it? I think we've always experienced one stage of our life where we just told ourselves, oh, we'll go for it, we'll buck up, it's cool. But like, how long can you do that for? Because in the grand scheme of things, every time you tell yourself to man up, you're just kind of covering cracks with plasters. Eventually it does break. So I remember the time when we went to BLK, and I always say Nate poisoned me because this is a perfect example of it. Like, whenever you had a bad experience in life, you try and cover it with something funny. So my bad experience was that I got really ill after me and Nate met up for lunch one day, like really ill, like literally bad. And my kind of like way of getting around it, instead of thinking about it as a negative, would be to like, oh, Nate poisoned me, as a joke, because that's covering cracks. But in reality, what happened was that I was literally like bedridden, I was sweating, I was hospitalized, but my whole thought process was that I'm not doing X, Y, Z, I need to man up and get shit done. It's that common saying, have some paracetamol, get a black coffee down you, and good to go. But it just wasn't happening. And then I felt bad on my other half, Mo, having to take a lot of the weight. And I think as guys, we easily cover that up because we want to be, again, the alpha. We want to be the hunter-gatherer. And when it does happen, we just feel shit about ourselves. And then that's when we just can easily go into like a big spiral. So I think what Paddy the Baddy was saying, I think it's about time someone actually just said it how it is. and helps out people.
Yeah, and when you say it like that, then it's just very, very polarizing, but it's also, that's what people need to take action, right? Like it's a powerful, powerful statement. But as we talk about today, completely a little bit off topic with the mental health side of things, but we're going to speak about setting up your own aggressive diet, right?
Yes.
So let's break this down. When is the right time and place to do an aggressive diet, and who's it for?
I would say the right time and place for setting up an aggressive diet is when there's a certain deadline in place.
Yeah.
Like a certain time frame, you need to do X by Y. Who is it for? I would say for someone who's been dieting for some time, who knows who knows their boundaries, they know they can step it up. Because if you're a brand new dieting, never dieted before in your life, going straight in the deep end, it's just going to go in a vicious circle and roundabout. So for me, it's someone who's been dieting pretty consistently, comfortable with it, ready to step it up, and for someone who's got some sort of time frame in mind.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, when I look at the points of who I've got that I could do an aggressive diet with, it's almost those that have their shit together.
Yeah.
Both physically and mentally. And I know that's like a polarizing statement, but it's those that in which when you add force onto a structure, it doesn't crumble.
Yeah.
Like, you have if you have hollow, pillars, and then you add more force onto that, it crumbles if it's not strong to withstand that. And unknown to most people, they won't know if they can handle an aggressive diet until they've failed on an aggressive diet. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing to accept. It's like, okay, you break it back to the fad diets, and we bring it back to something that we spoke about in the first episode. It's like, okay, cool. Fad diets worked for you for a short space of time. That aggressive diet worked for you for a short space of time, but now you need help again. Like, why do you need help again? Yeah. Because those structures weren't firm enough to weather the storm. So when you're looking at, let make a list. So those that are suited to an aggressive diet are those that do not have any poor relationship with food. They can take and leave food. They're not the people at the dinner table or when they go for a social event that they're picking 3 different dishes and eating all of them till absolute stuffness. They're not the people. The people that don't know, that think that they don't have enough time and very, very time poor, it's not for you. Those that don't have the ability to weather some type of fatigue, some type of enjoyment of pain or hunger, or not being very set up to deal with compromise. Yeah. And if you reverse that and you can deal with like compromise, you can deal with loads of other stuff. If you can deal with time management, if you can, you have a good relationship with food, then crack on. And once you do that, if you're in those positions that you can do that, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, you don't have to start with aggressive dieting either, right? So like if you start your normal diet and you get all those pillars in place, then when you add weight on and you add like the aggressiveness, it'll actually be better. It'll be fine.
Exactly that, because you've kind of been through the process at some stage. But one of the big things as well is someone who can't make sacrifices.
Yes, that's true.
Because 100%, anytime I've aggressively diet decline, sacrifices have had to be made. Yeah. If it's alcohol, if it's dinners out, if it's date night, it's like you do need to be prepared to make that little bit of sacrifice. But again, like the thing of aggressive diet is to get the results quicker than normal. Yeah. And if you can see that and achieve that, and you're consistently seeing the scales tick down, you're consistently seeing the body fat drop through going through an aggressive state, if you know there's a certain deadline behind it, that aggressive state will come to an end, and then you can kind of have a bit of a step back. We can go back to a sustainable approach. Yeah. Maybe have a diet break, a little bit of novelty. And I think for me, aggressive diets have always been a massive game changer. And it was actually you kind of like really showed me how aggressive you can actually go aggressive. Oh yeah. So for the photo shoot we had with some clients quite recently, is like when I kind of presented to people that I was going to drop a guy in his 30s who's quite active in day to day, over 6 foot. When I was going to drop their calories, like I think it was the lowest I went to was like 1500. They were gobsmacked. But it's an aggressive diet. You're doing it for a reason. Yeah. You're doing it for a reason with an outcome at the end of it. And then after the outcome, it's going to be some sort of less pressure for the after effect. Yeah. And yeah, funny enough, I think aggressive diets for me have just always been huge.
Yeah, like, and huge. If you get them right, the timing is right. And I'll say this now to that camera, is that if you're trying to eat and drink like a bell end at weekends and trying to get loads and loads of aggressive dieting, you're not going to get there. So like if you're not going to give up the 10 pints or your 10 pints Billy, and you're trying to be the lad, the weekend warrior, and then at the weekdays you're trying to be aggressive, it balances out to being a moderate diet or even nothing at all.
You might as well be banking calories.
You might as well be banking, or you might as well just be not eating. Like it's like it comes to a cost. If you want to aggressively diet, you do one or two things. If we're gonna a lot of clients and a lot of people have, I've even tried to do this back in the day, and I've got some stories about that. It's like when you try and bastardize the system, it's like I wasn't willing to give up those weekends of walking home from work on a Saturday, getting the 6-pack of Sainsbury's cookies, which oat and raisin, they're fucking unreal.
Sainsbury's finest.
Yes, absolutely right. So you make your way through those 6 cookies. Then on the way home, you stop at the other Tesco's. I lived in Hammersmith, so I was at City, London City. I get the cookies, eat them on the subway, and then on the way home, I'd go from, it's probably an eating disorder, but whatever. Is that like, and then you go to Tesco's, and then you get something from Tesco's, then you get home, and then you'd eat whatever you're at home, but also then get a takeaway afterwards. And if you're like eating loads type of things where you're having multiple frequent occasions of loads and loads of calories, it doesn't matter what you do during the week. It doesn't matter how low you grind. The reality in the book will always fall on like the calories across the week will always equal out or even go higher. So you can do that, and you can bastardize the system and not want to change your philosophy, your lifestyle. If you're, all you'd have to do legitimately, if you want to do an aggressive diet, but you're not like wanting to give up everything, you just cut your 10 pints down to 3. You'd cut your gin and tonics from 10 down to 3. You'd probably say no to the shots. You'd probably just pick going out for dinner with somewhere with calories on the menu, Wagamama's, Nando's, bloody McDonald's, wherever. You can have those things and just fit them within your calories on those days. Be prepared to be hungry, but you'll make it work if you really want to have that.
Yeah.
If you want to bastardize the system, of course. I wouldn't recommend that. I'd eat vegetables at all points, but
eat good, nutritionally dense foods.
Yes, absolutely.
But cheating the system's never going to work.
No.
Like, you can't cheat a scientifically proved system that if the lower in calories you go, the more body fat and body weight is going to drop. It's just going to happen. And one thing that you said to me quite a while back is that, and it hits home when I kind of think about it now, is that people are very, very skeptical about 1,200 calories of a diet.
Yes.
1,200 calories over the course of a day. One thing you said is that, that's for a toddler, but toddlers are trying to grow.
Yeah.
Adults are trying to shrink.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to lose body fat, don't think of it, and that's people bastardizing 12,000 calories. But again, it's for a reason. Like, you're going aggressive for a reason. It's a short-term thing. You're not going to be aggressive for the rest of your life. Yeah. You're going aggressive for whatever the goal at that end date is. Then after that, you're going back to a sustainable approach. Yeah. So like for me, aggressive diets have always just been the go-to to get shit done quick. Yeah.
And if they're set up in the right way.
Exactly, yeah.
So when we're looking at the setup of the aggressive diet, how are we structuring nutrition? Let's not go down that what like calorie specific, but how are you structuring someone's day for success with nutrition?
So when we go into aggressive stage, it's all catered around the client. So if the client can handle X, we will give them X. If they can't handle X and need a bit more of a sustainable aggressive approach, we go to Y. But the biggest thing that we try and do is just, it sounds so simple, and I know intermittent fasting is a fancy word, but skip our breakfast. Yeah. Skip our breakfast. If you're shortening calories, you've got 2 more fulfilling meals, you can densely nutritionize them to be more fulfilling, and you will be on that approach. If you have 1 good week of it, the 1 good week will learn to 2 good weeks, 2 good weeks into 3 good weeks, you're consistent. Yeah. Then you have that discipline, and then you never go back off track. So that's how we nutritionally set it up. We don't really focus too much on the nitty gritty in terms of protein, fats and carbs in that aggressive stage. We just want to lower the amount and then focus on the nitty gritty. Yeah. Because if you try and do everything at once, especially for someone who's never been aggressive that beforehand, it can be so overwhelming. So we set it up and then we start getting into good stuff as they're gearing towards it. Yeah.
Yeah. I like the couple of philosophies here. One is that time restricted eating. So whether you call it skipping breakfast or intermittent fasting, is that you start your eating further on in the day, because once you trigger hunger, once you have breakfast, you are going to stimulate appetite on a cyclical level because you've stimulated appetite. If you don't eat, then you haven't stimulated the appetite to expect its next meal. So what you want to do in those scenarios is just skip, black coffee, water until about 11 or 12, and then have a good volume of food. Now the next thing off that volume is high volume food sources. So if you're not eating vegetables, you're not eating fruits, and you're not eating like protein sources like fucking egg whites, chicken, voluminous yogurt, whatever it is, you're missing out on the biggest aspect of staying on diet, which is hunger. or that's where at least it starts the triggering off process, because you start thinking, oh, I'm a bit hungry, I might have this, or I might need that, or I'm starving, I need to have it. You feel like you're struggling. So if you start with high volume food sources, you pad out your meals. Like I remember a couple of years ago when I was working for a different company, I went to Australia to go and see my mate Ivan, and he is one of those guys that can stay shredded year round. Glutes in, he's got striations in his glutes all year round. And I was sitting with him over his dinner, and the whole of his day, he volumized everything to the highest degree possible. And he was eating over 5 kilos worth of volume of food every single day. And he's like, well, how am I going to get hungry if I'm eating 5 kilos worth of food in weight? My stomach is going to be full at all points. And that was him in a deficit. All he'd done is volumize his food. So he was having loads of egg whites. He was having loads of yogurt. He was having cream of rice. He was having like
a kg of peas. Yeah,
literally. Like everything was like super high voluminous. So you're not going to get hungry if you volumize your foods. Again, it's that whole thing of if you have 200 calories of berries versus 200 calories of a chocolate bar, the volume sizes are ridiculously different, which then has an impact on your hunger over time. So volumizing food sources, and then also looking at the time restricted eating. And the last thing is going to be, from a nutrition perspective, accepting there will be less food and chewing slowly. So when you get into that impetus of being quite hungry, you go to a meal and you try and chow it down really fast because you're hungry. But we know from like competitive eaters that competitive eaters try and eat as fast as possible because they have the hunger signal that goes on after 10-15 minutes. When they chew enough, it stimulates the secretion of GLP-1, whatever. Don't get into science, it's boring. Is that basically you get less hungry after that 10 to 15 minutes of eating. So competitive eaters will eat fast because they have to beat that signal. Whereas if you're dieting, you want to reverse that. You want to eat for 15, 20, 25 minutes because your satiation will be higher. So even if you got a 400 calorie meal and you're spending 15, 20 minutes to eat it, you could arguably be fuller from that than you would be from 1,000 calories in 10 minutes. And that's where you have to play with your discipline around how fast you eat when you're hungry, volumizing food sources, and then when you eat. If you can literally get those three in a bag together, you will not really have a problem with going lower on calories, other than the things that you should expect, which is slightly less mood, less energy.
Sacrifices day to day as well.
Yeah, there will be sacrifices, but that will be it. What do you do in terms of steps and cardio?
It has to increase. Yeah, so we kind of have like a 1% rule in a sustainable approach. Every single week 1% goes up. When we go aggressive, we go by 10. Okay. So 10% is always going to be increasing until the point where we start realizing that the client may hit the fucker button. We'll keep pushing, because everything you do more is only going to add into more. So step count will be potentially, if someone's on 5,000 steps, could be easily end up on 15,000 steps until the point when they hit a breaking point and they can't do any more. Yeah. Training sessions, add a cardio in, higher volume in terms of reps and sets. Like everything is managed based around that person. But if the client can be pushed more and more and more, we'll go for it. Till we hit the point where we think that the fucker button's going to be hit, we will push the client. Yeah. How would you kind of...
I think it's time management. So like, if you can manage time, you'll manage how much exercise and intensity that they've got to do. So for example, like the easiest ways that you can maximize your output in terms of your energy expenditure will be steps, and then obviously cardio, but then it's where you put them and how you do them is the consistent element. Like most people think, I can only get 8 to 10,000, but then when you break down someone's day and you go, okay, well, before a workout, I want you to be on the treadmill for 15, 20 minutes before you do that, because you're normally doing some stretching bullshit routine. Scratch the stretching, scratch the, getting changed and spending loads of time looking at yourself in the mirror. Get out, drop your stuff in the locker, get on the treadmill, walk for 15 minutes. You've got another 3,000 steps there done. So you do that, then you do your workout, then you do maybe your cardio after your workout, and then you've blocked that time together where you've got 3 levels of different output, and the rest of the day is the walk before in the morning, the walk in the evening. By the time you do that, you're at 15k steps easy. Yeah. So like then everything becomes easy, and then it becomes easier because you've managed your time and you've not gone, oh well, I need to go and do things in separate blocks. You're chunking things together. No, like habit stacking. Habit stacking is when you do one habit that you really like, one habit that you really don't like, and that's where you get to do that. It's the same with cardio and steps. It's like you go in the gym to do your workout, which you might arguably like. to get to the gym, your ticket to entry is the 15 minutes of cardio beforehand, and then the 30 minutes of stepper afterwards.
Yeah.
So you can combine them together. But relative, as you mentioned before, we go off how much weight you're losing. So we'll put something in play, and then if it's like, they're losing 1 to 2% of their body weight, we'll have a countdown and we'll have like a reminder of like how much we need to lose every single week on rough average. So if we hit that target and you're at 1 to 2% of your body weight per week, we'll just make sure we stay in that range.
Yeah.
And that'll be the biggest thing. Once we go out of that range, we'll make adjustments and we'll make changes, and then we'll stay there because we'll reverse engineer it. If someone's goal is to do 2 to 3% a week, then obviously they have to do more in a short space of time, and then obviously we have to change things more frequently to stay in that range too.
Yeah.
But the key will be always to there is always a nature of too aggressive, but it's normally too aggressive in the expectations as opposed to too aggressive with the approach. Like people can do dog shit and dust for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but they can't do dog shit and dust for 12 weeks. So being able to do it for a period of time and having the expectations that it's going to be fine. So, having someone say, I want to lose 10 kilos in 4 weeks. It's like, we'll do it, but you can't, you're not going to be able to do it. You know what I mean? So then you have to layer that expectation and say, well, why don't we go for 5 kilos in 4 weeks and see if we can get that. And if we over deliver, then great. But, I'm not going to promise you, we can't promise the world.
Mate, 100%. And I think one of the biggest things you said in that one is just the understanding of where the client is on that journey. Yeah. So like, do they know how aggressive you're going to push them? Like, is the communication there? Because I can guarantee when you put someone into more of an aggressive state of a diet, they're going to need more time of you. They're going to need more TLC. They're going to need to know that you're consistently there behind them, supporting them and backing them, and having more touch points with them to understand exactly what stage they are in that diet. Because the biggest thing that you just want to avoid is that client hitting the fucking button. As soon as that fucking button gets hit, it's so much harder to get them back in any form of a diet because they feel like they failed. Yeah. It's making them feel like the client's always accomplishing, always making strides towards their goals, no matter if it's sustainable, aggressive. As long as that's in place, then 9 times out of 10, adherence is going to be there, and you can keep pushing them. You can keep getting them towards that goal. Yeah,
and the last thing to talk about, I think, is the sacrifice trade-off that comes with the aggressive nature. Like, and really go into that. So, we joked about it before, but like, reality is that if you want a lifestyle diet, you probably don't expect weight loss every single week. And you shouldn't, because if you're trying to have 2 weekends where you're going out for dinner every single night and you're not really managing your food very well the rest of the time, you're probably not going to see much progress. But on the other end of the spectrum is the aggressive nature, where everything that you do in the week is geared towards this specific goal, and you have to find the blend between the two. And that's where, if you've got all those pillars we spoke about before with the time management, all that type of stuff, if you've got that in place, then you can pick on the spectrum of where you'd like to go, depending on how really do you want that goal, what's coming up in the next 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and then you can pick it based on those factors. Timing is one of the most underrated talk about points within the fitness industry when it comes to dieting, and no one wants to talk about it, because when someone comes to you and wants to pay you money, you say yes. And that's the most important thing, is that because no one's looking at timing on that side of things. They're just thinking that person's willing to hand me over X amount of money, I think they'll be an alright person to start, let's do it. But when you're really deeping it and you're looking at it from an absolute, like, you take you out the equation and you look at two people trying to achieve a common goal, is that the timing of things matter massively. We struggle primarily with our niche with the wedding season, right? Wedding season is ridiculously hard to work with, and therefore, is the time right to do an aggressive diet over the wedding season when you're going to be at 5-day weddings, then a 2-day weekend, then you're going to a Mendy the week after, then you're going to something else after that, and then you're going to do all these things? Is that the right time? Is it really the right time? I know you want to do it, but is it really the right time?
Yeah, is it going to happen? I think that's the biggest thing, because the wedding isn't just the one wedding like we do like for a UK wedding, right? Yeah, it's going to be 3, 4, 5 days, because there's different ceremonies that go on in each hour of the day. So it starts on Thursdays and we end on Sundays. The whole aggressive diet should happen beforehand. Yeah, it should happen way before. And that comes back to the time that you said. If you're going into wedding season, so you've got 4 or 5 weddings lined out over the next 6 weeks, you should have dieted way beforehand, because you're trying to go into an aggressive diet in that state quick, 4 or 5 days into it. It's not gonna even touch the water.
Piss in the ocean.
Exactly that. Like, you literally might as well, my favourite saying, go to River Thames, get the cash, just pay for that coach, and start stacking it into the...
Yeah. Literally put 500 quid in the Thames.
If someone's told you they can do that, they're lying to you.
Yeah.
100% lying to you.
And they're setting yourself up for failure, because you could do an aggressive diet for half the week, and then whatever you do to offset that is done and dusted. Like you're not going to get that. So timing is super, super key. But the thing is that if you're thinking, like, let's say, for example, you listen to this podcast and you're thinking, oh, no, time might not be right for me, but I've started with a coach or whatever. Don't think of it as an off and on switch. Think of it as a timing related to the aggressiveness. So we always say this, and this is a podcast in itself, and there's lots of podcasts, plenty of business. Plenty of business for a podcaster. Yeah. Is that the maintenance days. Yeah. And maintenance weeks. We speak about autonomy all of the time. Maintenance weeks are there, and days are designed to take you from that all or nothing mentality into, today is not a diet day, but I accept that because I want to go and have a nice meal. Yeah. But I also will get back on it tomorrow, and by the end of the week potentially I've lost a little weight, not as much as I would have if I didn't have that maintenance day. But I say that to say all this with the timing of things is that you should be aiming to do more of a lifestyle diet during the wedding season. And then when you come out of it, then you can move to more of an aggressive approach when the stars align, when Zodiac meets Cancer, and when you get to see Orion's Belt or whatever it's from not Mission Impossible, Men in Black 2, banging film. But when they went
Mission Impossible,
me too. Yeah, Tom Cruise, good lad. So when the stars align after the wedding season, when you're probably more motivated because you probably ate too much food, is then you can push into that aggressive diet. But if you say, no, I'm not going to start because I can't do an aggressive diet, you've then said to yourself that I'm going to gain 5-10 kilos because I'm waiting till after to start, which means that you're going to stockpile shit like a hamster in your cheeks, and you're going to eat as much as you can during that time frame. But if you say, actually, tonight, Matthew, now I'm not going to do an aggressive diet, I'm going to do a lifestyle. So what that means is I'm going to learn moderation over the 3 days, and then I'm going to diet normally over the other days. And if we balance out or we lose a little bit, great, but I'm staying on my P's and Q's and I'm not gaining. So it's risk averse as opposed to progression. And sometimes most people's problem is not progress, it's the risk aversion. It's great for 4 weeks, gain it all back in 1 week. That's not a progression thing, because over the 4 weeks you've progressed. It's actually the risk aversion of whatever that event is or whatever you've done to go backwards 4 weeks. So it's always a really good point to mention.
Never gonna be a perfect time, right?
Never gonna be a perfect time.
Apart from January.
Yeah. Slots open in January. But that's aggressive dieting, and I think we're absolutely on time as well. So guys, like, subscribe, comment. If you've got any names for the podcast, we're looking to really start stockpiling up here in terms of items, gifts. So if you do want to send anything to put on here, please do let us know. Us. Yeah, our sponsor us, Coupley.
It's expensive.
I'm gonna speak to Coupley about their app. So guys, we're gonna talk about Coupley in a couple of weeks' time as well, which is gonna be very exciting. So guys, have a good day, and see you in the next episode.
In a bit.